All right, here we go. We are getting started now with Fundamentals of Church Music. This is lecture number 13 and the History of Sacred Music, part 4. If you haven't seen the previous three, I would recommend starting with those um, just to kind of build up to this and see where we're coming from. And anyway, let's just go ahead and we'll get started here with the slides and jump right on in. Again, just a reminder, Pillar of History. I think this is one of our 4 key elements to kind of our understanding, our philosophy, our use of church music: scripture, history, music theory, and practical. So a very key element here. And the church phone is dinging on me, so we're going to turn that down. All right. Never know what's going to happen when you get record, right? I want to remind you, I think I left this off the last one, but there are a little quote to keep reminding you of. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Again, I contend what we are talking about in these lectures, we see the same debates, same fights, worship wars, if you want to call them that we have the same things today that they fought for 2,000 years before us. There's no really new thing as far as philosophy or approach goes. And I think we do a disservice if we don't learn from what time has worked on in all these debates. Tradition's a double-edged sword. I know you can hold a tradition and it's not worth anything, but also sometimes tradition is the way it is because it has been forged through the fires of debate, and it's been hammered on, it's been beaten, and what's left is strong and sturdy. And I think that's what we learn about when we talk about this area of music. Okay, so today we're going to get started here with the music of English. How did I get that? English revivalism. English revivalism. Now, there's something amazing because so what we've dealt with this so far, we've got good church music, but now we're going to add a little spark to it with a revival aspect. So music and revival go hand in hand. I can prove this historically. I think you can even prove it scripturally that when God moves in a special way, when people's hearts are turned towards Him, music is enhanced, and there's more of it. It's more people doing it. There's more enthusiasm for it. And what's amazing, I honestly think there's kind of something circular here. I think music can help lead to revival, but revival can also help lead to music. I mean, it's kind of circular. These two are so strongly. I heard somebody say once, that really, for us to have revival, we need to get back to 2 books. We need to get back to the Bible and the songbook. And I don't think that there's much wrong with that statement. And as we go through here and talk about some of these individuals, I think we can make a pretty good case of that. And like I said, what we're doing here, we're just talking about we've got a good foundation of church music, but now it's enhanced. Now there's something a little bit extra in it as it promotes and is born out of some of these great revivals in the past. So let's talk first. Talk about the Wesley brothers. The Wesley brothers. Wesley brothers are just 2 tremendous individuals. People from all stripes like to read about them. They are fascinating. Their biography, their impact, their writings, their music is, I'm gonna say it's undervalued, but sometimes it gets lost in the number of things that they do. So the Wesley brothers, John and Charles, there, left to right, John to Charles, they're Anglican ministers. I mean, they're ordained. They're from the Church of England. Their lives are transformed through scripture, personal piety. Groups like the Moravians, some other Protestant thought kind of gets in there, and it transforms their lives and their ministries. they basically began the Methodists as kind of a add-on to the Church of England. You went to the Church of England, but then you also went to the Methodist meetings. It was just kind of like an extra bonus thing that you did. But over time, it ends up being separated from that as some of their practices, and including music, further separates them from the Church of England. So John Wesley is known far more for his preaching. He's also a master organizer. I don't think this movement would have had near the impact had it not been for him just being a master promoter, organizer, the things behind the scenes, making sure programs are in place, making sure books are being published. These kind of things he is a genius at. And that may be more influential than anything he ever said, is some of the things that he was able to put into practice behind the scenes. And then you have Charles Wesley. He is far more known for songwriting. He writes over 6,500 hymns, some which we still use today. And Can It Be, Hark the Herald Angels Sing. That's a fun story on that one. George Whitefield kind of rewrote part of that. It was originally Hark How the Welkin Rings. Welkin is a term, anyway, it's an old-fashioned term. And so he said, nobody knows what a welkin is. Let's change it. And it became Hark the Herald Angels Sing. So let's talk a little bit, dissect their emphasis a little bit here. So Wesleyan emphasis on music, heavy on congregational singing. And that's what they're known for, is their singing. Joining in, just the congregation singing their hearts out, but not just feeling. Sometimes it's promoted so much. Well, there's all this spiritualness and fervor to it. They also produce high quality lyrics and music. It's not just let's have a good time, but they're really promoting using something very high quality. And like I say, he wrote about that a few different places. Just the John Wesley did, the importance of this. You can go read some of that stuff. It's fascinating, his writing on that. Also, musical instruction. They taught people how to read music, how to sing parts. This stuff is very important. So not only sometimes even just teach people how to read, but also teaching them music. And when people know music, they can do so much more. You don't have to sing a line, the people repeat a line. They can pick up a book, read it, and follow along with you. In fact, some of their early hymn books have, and I'll show you some scans of that, actually have musical instruction in them, like a guide. Here's how to read music. It's fascinating. They also produce some standard pairings of tunes and texts where instead of, here's 100 different texts and here's 10 tunes, just figure out what works for you. They suggest, hey, this tune works very well with this text. So these common pairings of these things kind of come from this heritage. And then also affordable hymn books for the home. Hymn books weren't something that they just wanted in the church. They wanted them at home. They wanted people using them. They wanted the music not just to be in the chapel, but also by the fireside. They wanted it to be an everyday part of life. So they purposely printed hymnals that the common people could afford. And so we're able to introduce music into the church or into the homes of these believers. And it had a very lasting impact. I think we can learn a lot from them. I think we need to go back and apply some of this to our own music today. Show you a couple things here. This is Select Hymns with Tunes and Next. This is one of their early hymnals. And this one's fascinating for a number of reasons. Like I said, not only is it popular, and we can look at a few things here. Get my little pin thing going back here again. And so you have your text here. Again, you have your tunes over here. But you'll see, look, use this for hymn 1, 2, and 3. So that's where you're starting to get some of your pairings done. Note no harmony on this. This is still pretty basic. Also, it tells you this is short meter. You need to watch the lecture on hymns whenever I get that recorded. I'll have it recorded as I'm doing this, but hopefully in the future I do. So a number of things here that are very interesting in this. Moving on, this is what I was talking about. Here is music instruction. Multiple pages saying, hey, look, and there's actually some of the European terminology used here, but here's a whole note, here's a half note, here's all the rest, here's what they look like, here's the scale and the notes. This is fascinating. Here's a tempo, how fast to do it. Just amazing what they kind of cram into this period or into this small space of basic music instruction. And like I said, I think we need to bring this back. I think we would do well to have this in every hymn book we produce. Have 4, 5, 6, 8 pages with this type of information. Here's what a note is. Here's how long it lasts. Here's how to read it. Why don't we do this? Why haven't we carried this on? I think we assume, well, if you got a hymn book, you must know music. But I learned a lot about music in church. I learned music, playing piano and stuff, but learned how to sing parts and things by basically, applying what little bit of knowledge I had and just figuring it out, looking at the book. How do you deal with repeat signs? How do you deal with DCL Finet and some of these terms like that? I just learned by, oh, hey, that's what we're singing. Oh, look, that's what you do on here as you're singing it. So I think this would be extremely, extremely valuable to have a very basic deal like this in every hymn book that's produced. I think it would do wonders for our singing. We need to get back to educating people in church music, and I think this would be a great start. Other would also be having some classes on it available for people. All right. Part of this, by the way, there's 12 pages on how to read music, and I love this. This is part of John Wesley's writing in this. He has instructions for singing, and there are 7 points to this. I think I may have a couple typos in here I need to fix, kind of coming from that older English styling and some of the spelling and stuff. He said, this part of divine worship may be the more acceptable to God as well as the more profitable to yourself and others. Be careful to observe the following directions. So he's like, this will be better if you do this. 1, learn these tunes before you learn any others. Know your music, okay? And then learn more. And 2, sing them exactly as they're printed here without altering or mending them at all. And if you have learned to sing them otherwise, unlearn it as soon as you can. What's the importance of this, of singing it as printed? It's so you're unified. Everybody's singing the same notes. Number 3, sing all. See that you join with the congregation as frequently as you can. Let not the slight degree of weakness or weariness hinder you. If it is a cross to bear, take it up and you will find a blessing. So just everybody, you don't care if you can sing or not, everybody join in and sing. 4, sing lustily and with good courage. So sing out, basically. Beware of singing as if you were half dead or half asleep, but lift up your voice with strength. Be no more afraid of your voice now, no more ashamed of its being heard than when you sung the songs of Satan. I love that one. Next, 5, sing modestly. Do not, that's supposed to be ball. I need to fix that. So as to be heard above all or distinct from the rest of the congregation that you may. So sing with heart, but also sing within the harmony, within the structure of the congregation. So that everybody's singing together, as he puts it, so as to make one clear melodious sound. 6, sing in time. Whatever time is sung, be sure to keep with it. Do not run before or stay behind. Again, this is being unity in this, being close to the leading voices, and move therewith as exactly as you can, and take care you sing not too slow. This drawling way naturally steals on all who are lazy. It is high time to drive it out from among us and sing all our tunes as quick as we did at first. So don't fall in a rut. Now, I'm also going to jump on here with a video here. part of what he's talking about here is also the practice of lining out, where the song leader will sing a line and then the congregation repeats it, and that's something that is very common during this time, and it causes it to drag like crazy. So we'll mention it a little bit later. Above all, sing spiritually. Number 7 here. Have an eye to God in every word you sing. Aim at pleasing Him more than yourself or any other creature. In order to this, attend strictly to the sense of what you sing, and see that your heart is not carried away with the sound, but offer to God continually. So shall your singing be such as the Lord will approve of here and reward when He cometh in the clouds of heaven. Folks, I feel like those 2 slides, that's the course. if I oversimplified the course, that's the course right there. It's amazing. I love those words. Thankful he wrote them. Thankful he shared them. And I like that they're in the hymn book. You pick up the hymn book, and here's this writing. It says, okay, come on, people. Let's sing it, and let's sing it out. Let's sing it right. Maybe something else we need to put in there with the musical instruction. I'd love to see a repeat of that. Have an exhortation in there to sing it and sing it right. 1780, here's another hymnal, a collection of hymns for the use of the people called Methodists. So just another real early hymnal. This one, okay, this one has a paragraph in it, and this is pretty small, but this is Wesley, John Wesley, talking about the quality of hymns. I think it's worth focusing on too. It says, may I be permitted to add a few words with regard to the poetry? Then I will speak to those who are judges thereof, with all freedom and unreserve. To these I may say, without offense, 1, in these hymns there is no doggerel, no botches, nothing put in to patch up the rhyme, no feeble expletive. So it's quality. Doggerel is a low quality poem. Okay. 2, here is nothing turgid or bombast on one hand, or low and creeping on the other. 3, here are no cant expressions, no words without meaning. Those who impute this to us know not what they say. We talk common sense, both in prose and verse, and use no word but in a fixed and determinate sense. I like that. Words have meaning. We use words in the proper meaning. 4, here are, allow me to say, both the purity, the strength, and the elegance of the English language, and at the same time, the utmost simplicity and plainness suited to every capacity. I like this because it's quality, elegance of language, but it's not so elevated that it's impractical or you can't understand it. Lastly, I desire men of taste to judge, these are the only competent judges, whether there be not in some of the following hymns the true spirit of poetry, such as cannot be acquired by art and labor, but must be the gift of nature. By labor a man may become a tolerable imitator of Spenser, Shakespeare, or Milton, and may heap together pretty compound epithets as pale-eyed, meek-eyed, and the like. But unless he be born a poet, he will never attain the genuine spirit of poetry. Again, the quality, the high art of this. We're not just singing songs. We're singing quality songs. We're singing high-quality artistic songs. And by the way, let me chase a real quick rabbit on that. Some of this is your philosophy, your worship philosophy coming in. If you have a high elevated view of God, you're going to have a high elevated view of worship. If you view God as elevated, as great, you're going to want to offer him something that is great, matching as best we can his majesty and splendor. That's why the importance of quality is so big in here. And I would compare this to a lot of things written today that have no quality. They sound good, they rhyme, they have a nice beat, but there is nothing of this majestic beauty, sweetness that is present in some of these old hymns. It's almost a lost art writing these classic poems in this hymn style, and I wish we'd get back to it instead of just finding words that sound good or fit the rhythm, but actually putting together these wonderful, wonderful poetic verses that can be used. All right, a couple other guys we'll talk about as we kind of working our way through here that are important. John Newton and William Cowper, it's William Cooper. It looks like Cowper, it's pronounced Cooper. Trust me, I looked it up. John Newton, of course, is most famous, former sea captain, slave trader who got saved, and they make movies and write books about it even today. And then you have William Cooper, who part of the same church there, Olney, and in 1779 they collaborated and produced a hymnal. And not only are both of these men great writers and wrote some songs we still sing today, but this collaboration and the quality of this music is very important, still influential today. So here we have, this is Olney Hymns, 1779, and I'm going to point out a couple of things here in this to you. Number one, here we have the very first appearance of this song. What song is this? Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. The very first appearance of Amazing Grace, 1779, Olney Hymns. Not only that, you also have another hymn you might recognize. There is a fountain filled with blood drawn from Emmanuel's veins, and sinners plunged beneath that flood lose all their guilty stains. This is not the first. I think it's the second or third. I think it's the third time it was printed, but still a very early printing. But I think just those two hymns ought to give you an idea of the quality of what is being written. Also, point out here, just talking about hymns, point this out. There's no titles. This is not Amazing Grace. This is not There Is a Fountain. They actually got those titles from the first line. That's a common practice. Also note that these are rooted like in scripture, like it's like you're going through the Bible in this order. But then over here, here's your index, and there's no titles or anything. It's just a believer free from care. And then here's the page. So there is no titles. Titles are a very modern thing. So even 1779, they're not necessarily having titles to these. Well, here's the first line of it. And these actually, their names were adopted from their first titles, or titles adopted from their first lines. Couple other people I want to mention. This goes a little bit beyond England. Count von Zinzendorf, which is just fun to say. I love saying that. He's a leader of the Moravians, just the amazing missionary-minded Protestant group from this period, legendary in their devotion and their missionary endeavors. He wrote over 2,000 German hymns. What's interesting is he didn't necessarily sit down and write them. He just kind of made them up as he was leading them. He'd sing a line, the people would repeat a line, but some of them turned out pretty good. And I think he'd kind of tweak them a little bit after the fact, but wrote a number of hymns, not so much that we would use nowadays. I can't think of any off the top of my head that he still used, but you can find a bunch of those if you look around. The other guy there is William Williams. This is British, but it's not English. He's Welsh. And so, by the way, the Welsh language, Wales is a region, birthplace of some tremendous hymns and hymn music. And he's kind of I guess, maybe one of the leaders, father of that. You might have heard one of his songs, Guide Me, O Thou Great Jehovah. It's probably his most famous one. But like I say, sparked by Wesley and Whitfield and these guys, Wales produces some tremendous hymns, and he's one of the best. So worth highlighting there. Like I say, it's not just the English language that's being affected by this revival fervor. It's spreading into other areas and even other languages. All right, so let's talk about music and English Baptists. There's a great divide in musical opinion when it comes to English Baptists, especially these early days. I'm going to say 1700s and before, especially. You have the General Baptists, also called General because they believe in general atonement, and they do not sing and they do not have music. They write against them, they preach against them, but none of that in their churches. None of that in their homes. You don't have it. The particular Baptists, who are kind of influenced by Calvinism, Reformed theology, particular atonement, these guys actually do sing. There's debate, not all of them, but they will sing. In fact, that is a book by John Gill right there talking about the singing of psalms as part of divine worship. Early English, to give you an idea, I found this. I thought this was pretty neat. An early English Baptist order of service. This was from some old record books. So they start with a psalm, probably sung there, short prayer, an exposition of scripture, and then an optional psalm or hymn, another prayer, the sermon, a psalm or hymn responding to the sermon, and then a short prayer, and then a benediction, pronouncing a benediction or blessing on the people. So not too far off from what we do today. I would say the exposition is separate from the scripture, or separate from the sermon, excuse me, is probably the most unique thing. I know Charles Spurgeon kept that up in his church. He would usually go through a psalm and talk about it, and then it would be separate from the sermon. But anyway, still pretty similar to what most Baptists would do today. So, like I said, a lot of debate, a lot of things going on. We'll actually revisit this in the next lecture, but just to give you an idea of kind of how things look. In fact, honestly, this might even fit better in the next lecture, but that's where it is. Let's jump over to America, early sacred music in America. The earliest English settlers brought mainly psalters with them. And so when you have like the Pilgrims, when they settle at Plymouth, they actually have like at least 3 different psalters. The Ainsworth Psalter, the Ravenscroft Psalter, and the Sternhold and Hopkins Psalter. There's a picture there of the Ravenscroft one, which has some harmony. It's kind of cool. Sternhold and Hopkins, again, that's kind of the standard. The Ainsworth one is not really quite as popular. Here's a scan of it, but it does have some music and things in it. A little bit more ornate. It's kind of fancy looking. So, but these were brought over. They do eventually produce their own book. In 1640, in fact, the very first book, period, no other book predates this printing in America. The very first book printed in America is a psalter, a psalm book. It's called today the Bay Psalm Book. 1640. There's only 11 known surviving copies of this, one of the most valuable books in existence, highly sought after. 2013, one sold for $14.2 million. Luckily, you can find some scans of it online, so you don't have to pay that to read it. Bunch of different various revisions take place on this over the decades, but it's still used into the late 1700s. There are still pockets of people using this until it kind of gives way to some others. So very influential in America, and more so showing what's being sung, mainly psalms, and even such to the length that we put together our own psalm book. Okay, lining out. We'll talk about this. I mentioned this before. This is the way most colonial churches jump in here. This is the way most colonial churches led singing. Part of it's a lack of books for everybody. You don't necessarily have that stuff laying around. Another of it is not everyone is literate, so you have to take that into account. And this is just practical. And by the way, this goes back. It's kind of a call and response, antiphonal. There's all kinds of terms for this. But this lining out is what they would call it during this time period. And in this, the song leader would sing a line, and then the congregation would repeat them. So what happens with this is that it drags out. It takes twice as long to sing a song, practically speaking. So I can sing Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound, and then, wait for you, amazing grace, how sweet that saved a wretch like me, saved a wretch like me. I mean, it drags out. And not only that, you have to wait for the congregation to finish. So what would happen is he'd be singing, "There is a fountain filled with blood drawn from Emmanuel's veins." Later would sing that, and then the other people out there, you'd have people going, "There is a fountain filled with blood," and holding out notes, and everybody kind of following their own rhythm. Somebody sings it fast, somebody sings it slow. It's all over the place. It's a very individualistic way of worshiping in this case, even though it's congregational. Something in that, because that's something we battle with today. So this got phased out. There's all kinds of fun quotes about this, that how awful it is. 1760, um, a guy wrote and says, "I have observed in many places one man is upon this note, while another is a note before him, which produces something so hideous and disorderly as is beyond expression bad." So I did find this recording that, let me jump over here on this side, there's still a little bit more. That now, as it starts out, this is a church in Kentucky, but it kind of is carrying on this tradition. And it kind of jumps in the middle of a line here. So they're singing Amazing Grace. Okay, so they're finishing out this first line. Now, as soon as you hear the okay, you're gonna hear the leader sing it really fast. Now they repeat the line. But notice how they're protracting this out. They're stretching out that rhythm. They're really kind of not all on the same page. Seven, eight, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. It's over 10 times longer than what he's saying. If I counted the seconds, I was pretty close. So you can see why. Well, I kind of like this. I think it's really cool, especially some Appalachian harmony in this. You can see why this would drag out and people are all over the place. Not much uniformity in this. Okay. Something else that happens during this period I think is pretty neat is you have singing schools. Late 1700s, there's this effort to people want to learn music and they want to improve the music in the churches. So you have these little singing schools pop up, and sometimes these are itinerant teachers. They would just travel around and stay somewhere a few weeks and teach, and then move on. Some places, would just set up and hey, the advertisement there. It'll be attended at his house on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays from 5 to 6 o'clock afternoon. So you just go over there on those days and you could practice and do this. But you'd get together and they would teach you how to read music, usually shape notes. We'll get to that on the next slide. But you learn how to sing parts, how to read music, these kind of things. A little bit of this is still active today. They usually call them singing schools, but they're usually more of a singing convention. But where they'll get together and sing like the shape note style songs and stuff. But there is still some of this that goes on, but it's usually in the shape note world. I think we need a revival of this idea. I think we need to have this type of musical training return into our modern churches. We assume people learn music in elementary school or in college. I think we'd be much better served to actually, but see, the thing is, even that, you're learning music in general, or maybe you learn music in a different setting. You learn how to play a trumpet in a marching band. That may not necessarily everything you learned equate to congregational singing or harmony. So I think we do need specialized training in this. I would love to see a return of some singing school settings where we teach people music and we teach people how to sing. I think this would help keep some of this traditional music alive, is by teaching people to appreciate it, how great it is, how accessible it is, and work on some of these things with it. Also, another impact from this is that it helped introduce instruments into worship, because they would have a guitar, an auto harp, or something, an organ, helping people learn pitch. And so that kind of helped introduce some of those things into worship. Now, shape notes grew out of these singing schools, and they're promoted as a more efficient way of distinguishing pitches on a scale. So instead of looking at, oh, well, that's on that particular line, it's a treble clef, therefore, that's a G. Instead of doing that, you looked at it like, oh, that's a triangle. It's this tone. And you would usually use the solfege, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So, oh, that particular shape equals this tone. And actual studies have been done on this, and it actually is faster to learn how to read music this way. I'm kind of broken on it because I learned piano music, and so going back and trying to learn this is I've had a hard time picking it up. I really would love to, but when I look at it, I see an E, F, A, C, A, C. I don't see the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. It's a different approach to it. I know more of the music instrumental side, where this is really coming from a straight up vocal side. It's made for singing. Really a fascinating history to this stuff. 1802, kind of the first one of this, the Easy Instructor, a new method of teaching sacred harmony. This is one of the first popular books on this. And here's some of the information on it. So again, I think we need some of this stuff back, where we have the, hey, here, learn how to do it. It does use some of the British or European name, but okay, see, a round note, no matter if it's filled in or if it's a 16th note or whatever, this is always sol. And if it's a triangle, it's la, the mi, fa, so la, mi, fa. And then that just repeats. This is a 4-note system. There's 2 different systems. There's a 4-note and a 7-note system. I'll show you that in a little bit. But see, it's teaching you, here's your notes and your tones. Here's bass clef. Here's a tenor clef. Here's a treble clef. Here's some stuff on timing and bars and rest and things. This is tons of information packed into just one page here. And then you get into the music itself. So here we go. This one's 4 parts. Some are 3. And it's very interesting. You have different clefs here. So let's jump down here and look at this one. By the way, why am I doing this? Because this is Old 100. Ye nations round the earth, rejoice before your sovereign King. Serve him. Okay, it's praise God from whom all blessings flow. It's the Old 100. So note here, you got treble, and then this is like a tenor clef, treble, and then bass. We have cut time right here, so it's 2/4 time or 2/2 time, I guess. And then we're coming in on an upbeat, so they have rest to show that. 4-part harmony here. Let's see. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Trying to figure out where it's this one right here. Here's your harmony. And so the rest are the melodies in this line. Here's your harmony lines. And one of the unique features of this is you see these jump around a lot in their harmony. They don't really stay very static. So if you're singing bass, you're not just, sitting here singing Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. You're not doing something like that. You're jumping around. It makes it more engaging. It's purposely written that way. It's fascinating, the structure and the harmony. It's a very unique harmony style. Really goes back to like English folk hymns and things. It's fascinating. I've got a sample of it here in a little bit we'll listen to. Again, here are the 4 and 7 note different systems with the shapes. fa sol la mi fa, or do re mi fa sol la ti do. If you Sound of Music, you're familiar with that one. But those are the two different forms of this. So here's from the Southern Harmony. This is one of the popular books that come out of this, 1854, and we'll kick this off. This maybe turned up just a bit. Sorry. All right. Now here they're just doing the tones, fa sol la mi ti do. So that's shape note singing solfege is what it's sometimes called. There's a tradition you sit in this square type area, leader in the middle, and you have basses, tenors, altos, and everything's kind of split off. But that's the traditional way. The keeping time, raising your hand. Like I said, there's still pocket schools that get together and do this. There's the Bend toward the Lord our God. This is a song we still sing today that has its roots back to these. Pretty interesting. There's tons of videos on it too. Okay, so sacred harp singing. Traditional This traditional shape note singing is still alive today. It's usually called sacred harp after one of the main songbooks, the Sacred Harp book. And like I say, it's designed to be engaged for all parts. A couple of tunes that we use come from this heritage. Amazing Grace, that tune called New Britain, comes from this heritage and How Firm a Foundation. Brethren, we have met to worship. So there are some elements of that that have made their way still preserved in the hymn book today. Not a ton. These were very popular in the South. It kind of starts up in New England. Some of it still, there's some pockets up there. But you get in the South, this type of singing was very, very popular. It eventually kind of becomes the Stamps Baxter shape notes of the convention singing in the early 1900s, excuse me. So,
45 on the top.
so there they go, calling out the tune. I don't remember what this one is. Oh, it's Amazing Grace. It's not exactly the same because actually the way we sing it, the modern harmonies were produced by a guy named EOXL, which we'll mention in the next lesson. Anyway, it's amazing. Just look up Singing School Sacred Harp on YouTube. You will find hundreds of videos, and I actually really enjoy it. Okay, we'll talk about spirituals real quick. Spirituals are a type of religious folk song unique to America. This came from America. They're usually associated with African Americans. They would say that the slaves in the South they picked up religious words from church and would kind of do their own versions, own tunes, or use terminology from church and or the Bible. It's not complete. There are such thing as white spirituals. So if you get really technical, but basically today it's used. It's very much synonymous with the black church. They typically use different things, a little bit different than a traditional hymn or even some traditional church music. A lot of call and response, where the somebody will say a line, then people, then the chorus repeats it. A lot of repetition in this, where they'll sing the same line over and over and over and over again. And then the use of choruses. Traditional hymns usually don't have a chorus, but these will. So, and a lot of gospel songs moving forward too. I'm going to skip the videos on this. I'm going to encourage you just to go look these up yourself. I've got a couple videos, but some different groups you want to hear kind of modern take on this. The Fairfield Four is a pretty good one. They're probably the most recent. Harmonizing Four is probably one of my personal favorites. But there's a few other ones, and like I say, get on YouTube, look for um, look for this style of music, and you'll find a bunch of old recordings, and there's some very old recordings from like the 20s and 30s of people doing this. It's fascinating. People, the picture in the background that's behind me now is a like one of the attempts. So they tried to preserve this, write it all down, and try to put it you know put it in musical notation and things. It's a really neat heritage. These typically, though, are pretty low quality as when it comes to theology. They might get a little excited, they might be a little fun, but typically not something that's carried over into a lot of modern churches. Um, uh, you swing down, sweet chariot, stop and let me ride. Some of them are fun. Go tell it on the mountain. You get a few that have, but for the most part, um, they're kind of a historical, ethnic um, thing, but it was really fun. I do enjoy these. I enjoy some of these kind of different forms of sacred music, and I'm not saying this is not sacred. It is very sacred. It does also, some of the spirituals also have a influence on the blues, early rock and roll. So some pop music actually is influenced by some of the things. Even Elvis Presley, some of the things he did, the way he sang, was heavily influenced by black churches he had attended, or black, and some of the people he had been around as a kid. So it does have a very profound impact on modern music in general. But like I say, inside the sacred music realm, especially in conservative churches, you really don't see much of it. But it's worth noting, like I said, just talking about American music, sacred music in America, the two things that really develop unique to America: shape note singing and the black spiritual. So, all right, we'll call that good for this lesson. And I appreciate you watching, and hope it's been a help and a blessing to you.